All right, everybody. Welcome back to the Thanks for Rolling podcast. I am one of your hosts, Jeff. I am here with Pat. And Pat, we have a remote guest with us.
Yes, sir.
Coming from the great state of Texas, Joe Dierkhising. Joe, welcome to the podcast.
Hi. Thanks, guys. Happy to be here.
Thanks for hanging with us through our technical difficulties here.
We had our standard Zoom technical difficulties where we could look at each other and make sign language. It was clearly a white belt connection that we were having here. So, Joe, like I said, welcome to the pod. One of the things I wanted to ask you, well, before I get too far into things, let's hear about your kind of jiu-jitsu journey, right? I was just saying before we started here that Pat and I saw you most recently on Who's Number One. Was that March, I believe?
Yeah, I believe so.
And talk to us a little bit about your jiu-jitsu journey. I heard you in an interview for that show saying, like, this is like, I believe, like the first year you've really dedicated to training jiu-jitsu. But I'm curious, like, how you got to this place. Like, take us through your journey.
Yeah, so I kind of came into martial arts from when I was in college. So I was not one of those kids who grew up with it, other than watching Bruce Lee and Jet Li movies. But yeah, I grew up skateboarding, surfing, swimming competitively, and then in college, I got recruited to swim collegiately and got mono, missed the first part of the season, and then kind of just started doing school and living the college life, and kind of fell out of competitive swimming. And I was a junior, and I happened to pick up the school newspaper, and they had this article, and it was about Chuck Liddell. And he had an MMA gym that was down the street from my house in my college town. And I was like, you know what? Like, I like watching the UFC. Like, it looks interesting. Let me go check out that gym. I'm looking for something athletic to do, right? And I always liked martial arts. So I went in there and I started kickboxing, and I did that for maybe 6 months to a year. And then every day before a kickboxing class, they'd have people doing wrestling. And I was like, you know what? Like, I should learn how to do something related to that, just so I could, like, defend takedowns or something. And our kickboxing program had some really good fighters. We had some guys who were K1 heavyweight champ. We had a guy who beat Glover Teixeira on an MMA fight, who was a really good striker, and they would just kick my butt in the kickboxing. And when I started grappling with them, I found I could just, even as a white belt, I could catch them in submissions. And I was like, oh boy, this is my chance to start to, like, make ground on them always beating me up. So that kind of naturally drove me towards the grappling side of things. And then, like most people, you start doing it, and then you see how far the rabbit hole goes, and you see how good you can get and how much there is to learn. And I fell in love. And then as I traveled after that, I trained at different gyms as I moved different cities for my career and for college. But that was the start of it. It was just an MMA gym in San Luis Obispo, California.
It's funny how that starts, right? With you never forget watching Bruce Lee and Jet Li movies. Like, how often we've talked about people. We had a guy come in who's a local striking coach, and he had a Bloodsport T-shirt on during the interview, right? And I was like, man, that was the first time I wanted to walk around like this, like in a faux Muay Thai stance, right? Like, yes.
And do the splits.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'll leave that part out of it, I guess. So when did you start to, like, train? Well, I guess you do some striking now, right? I think I've seen you post at least some training in striking. I think you've had a few Muay Thai fights, right?
Yeah. So I probably split most of my time, maybe 60-40, doing a little bit more striking than jiu-jitsu for my first couple years. And when I graduated college, I moved to San Diego and started training at Black House. Mm-hmm. So it was an MMA gym in San Diego at the time. And I had a couple Muay Thai amateur fights, and then I did my first couple jiu-jitsu tournaments while I was training there. And I think I have more time training striking than I do jiu-jitsu. Or I did, at least until I moved to Houston in 2015. And then I got a corporate job, so I figured I need to leave my moneymaker looking good. So I was like, jiu-jitsu, that'll probably be good. I can compete in this. I'm not going to show up to work with black eyes or anything or a broken nose. So that was a little bit of the kind of reason why I stuck to jiu-jitsu. But yeah, lately I've decided that I want to have a couple fights in MMA. I think it's something I definitely want to do before I'm done with my competitive career. So I've picked up the striking as of late, but that's more of a recent development.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I think we've talked to a lot of people who have kind of gone the opposite way, right? Like, let's strike, and then I realize I don't like getting punched in the face, and then I'll stick to the mats. I can speak personally from that experience, at least. Yeah. So, did I see that you do a little work with the B team as well? So the local.
Yeah. So I met Craig at a seminar when he came to Houston for the first time, and maybe like 2017, something like that. And we were like around the same size. I'm a little bit bigger than him, but we had some good training. We kind of like had like a friendly relationship and just stuck in contact. And every time he would come to Houston, we would train. And then when I found out he was coming out to Texas, I was psyched. I was like, this is great. I don't have to fly to Puerto Rico. I don't have to fly
right.
to New York or New Jersey.
Right.
This is like much more convenient. And Austin is a fun city to go visit. So back when he came, he was the first guy to come from Puerto Rico. It was him and Isaac. And I went to the gym and would train with him and brought one of my buddies. He's a former collegiate wrestler from Penn State. His name is Gino Morelli. I'd bring him out, and we'd all get some good training in, just the four of us. Isaac, Gino, myself, and Craig. And then, yeah, just go and I visit B Team whenever I can. When I'm training for big tournaments, so Worlds, ADCC, I try to spend a couple nights out there a week. So go and train there maybe Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and then come back and work in Houston. And always looking for an excuse to go out to Austin in general. But yeah, the B Team has just a room full of a lot of different minds with a lot of different styles, and it's a great place to train.
So Pat and I have been watching Who's Next, right? So getting a first look at Isaac on there. Have you seen any of that at all? Any of the show?
No, I need to watch it. I've seen the clips. I saw the clip of Andrew Tackett riding that bull and taking it back.
Yeah. That little Tackett guy, man, I'll tell you, he's like, all the challenges that they've had, he's been like the man. I'm like, what? Pat texted me the other day, said, is Tackett good at everything that they're doing on here? It's crazy.
Yeah, I saw him pull some poor man who doesn't know how to swim off of a paddleboard.
yeah, that was in the last episode, yeah. Yes, and I just saw that Isaac, I was looking at the ADCC trials for Oceania, right? Asian Oceania. I saw that he was one of the names that I recognized on there. So
yeah, he's gonna win that for sure.
Yeah,
I'll put money on that. He's gonna definitely win.
There you
he's
go.
A beast.
There you go. So you mentioned a corporate job. We hear you have like some special skills or a special background, I should say. Is this true? What do you do outside of jiu-jitsu, I should say?
Yeah, so jiu-jitsu is like I guess it's my hobby. I do it, I guess, at a pretty high level, but it's not what pays the bills for me personally. So I work for an energy company as a geophysicist in a geophysical technical team. So that's what I got my graduate degree in, and that's what I do as a profession. But I love jiu-jitsu. I love martial arts, and this is probably this is what I spend almost all my time outside of work doing.
Yeah. What does a geophysicist do?
So a lot of things they can do. I guess what I do is, so I work primarily with seismic data. So you can think of it sort of like an MRI for the Earth's interior. And a couple things geophysicists can do is you can either be the person who takes the seismic data. So, you have a ship, they have like essentially big machines that make bubbles. Those reflect off of all the different layers in the Earth's surface. They get recorded along these long lines that follow ships. And you can turn all those little wiggles on each of those hydrophones into an image of the subsurface. So you can be responsible for making those, or you can be responsible for doing analysis on them for different rock properties in the subsurface, or doing geologic interpretation. So I work more on the analysis side. and then I work in a team where we work on projects, either for let's say site characterization for wind farm projects. You want to put a turbine somewhere, you have to understand what the rock conditions are that you're going to put that into, or hydrocarbon reservoir characterization. So understanding whether the reservoir properties are what you need to make that project economic.
That could be the most fascinating non-jiu-jitsu job we've talked about.
Yeah, that's a pretty cool one
thus far. You guys want to talk about any engineering with
right? Yeah, I'm a full-time civil engineer, and then I also own and run our academy here, so I can appreciate the challenge of trying to do both. And I just can't imagine how difficult it is for you trying to compete at the level that you do while keeping up with the full-time career and not getting to train half as much as a lot of the guys you're competing against.
Yeah, I think it's all about just time management and using your time wisely, and then deciding like what you want to do with that extra time. And I think you probably have the same challenge as I do, whether you're running a school, which takes a lot of time, and instructing, or you're competing. It's essentially all your time.
Right.
You can't waste it. You just have to use it efficiently when you get off work. And I know there's a lot of other successful people in jiu-jitsu who are in a similar position as me. I know the minus 99 kilogram winner at the ADCC North American Trials was Paul Ardilla.
Yeah,
and I know he's a lawyer, a full-time lawyer. So there's people out there besides me who can also do it. It's just about being disciplined and using your time wisely.
Yeah. Yeah, those are the fascinating stories. We've talked about that. Like, to be a full-time lawyer and manage, like, train enough to pull that win off. Like, it's impressive, right? Like, I think, I think all of us who have gotten hooked by jiu-jitsu wish we could train all day long, every day, right? Like, as long as the body would allow it.
Uh-huh.
And it's hard to balance those two things. Like, how do I got to keep my life going at the same time where I still could be at the gym 5 days a week, right?
Right. But you're spot on with the time management. I get the question from students all the time, and we have this discussion, and they're mind blown when I tell them I still sleep 7 or 8 hours every night. They're like, how do you do that? I'm like, well, there's no in between time. I'm working, I'm here running the academy, or I'm home spending some family time and sleeping. We're not spending hours binging on Netflix. I'm not out doing other things. This is what we do.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think that's what it is. Like you have to make sacrifices in your life, and you just decide what is important to you, and then you base your life schedule around that. So yeah. So fortunately, I have family, and I have a girlfriend that's understanding of that, and everything goes pretty smoothly. But I kind of make it clear what my priorities are and where I'm going to be spending my time.
Yeah, we've talked about that with students here, right? Where people are like, "Oh, I've got this going on, I got that going on, I can't come in." And I'm like, man, I'm a father. I've got a full-time job. Like, you can make it work if you really want to. Like, everything else tends to be an excuse, right? So it's all prioritization.
Yeah, you hear that all the time, and like everybody, you go through different things in your life. But if somebody's not coming to jiu-jitsu, it's fine. But it just means it's not a priority.
Exactly.
Because I know people who are doctors, they have kids, they work 60 hours a week, and they still make it to jiu-jitsu 5 days a week.
Right.
So
yeah,
it really comes down to, do you want to do it or do you not want to do it?
Right.
I'm not here to like make you want to do it, but if it's important to you, you'll make time.
Yeah, 100%. I always say that. It's not a matter of you didn't have time. It just wasn't a priority. I say it to everybody in life, right? I said it to the people who work for me at this point. I'm like, you had time. You just chose to do something else.
You can't get off work today and then think, do I want to go to jiu-jitsu today? That's just got to be automatic. Yeah. It needs to be built in. If jiu-jitsu is your priority, you're not thinking about it after work. You get off work.
Yeah.
You go train.
Yeah. That's very true.
For sure.
Joe, do you think that your career and like the analysis part of your career has enhanced your jiu-jitsu or vice versa, right? Because, I always think about, and we've talked about this, it's not just Jeff's philosophy, but right, the creative problem solving that's needed to be a high-level jiu-jitsu competitor, right? And, solving the questions that your opponent is always posing to you. Has that helped you in your career or vice versa? Has that like been something you've thought about?
Yeah, I think they both can help each other. I think going through school for math and geophysics, I think you get used to thinking in a critical, analytical sense. And I think I certainly have a little bit of that just naturally. And then it was enhanced through college and my education. And I think I apply that same thing to jiu-jitsu. And I'm always thinking about like the physics and anatomy of the body when you're moving and like where your leverage is and all that sort of stuff. So I think I definitely think systematically about that. And then on the side of my jiu-jitsu helping my career, I think one of the things that's helped it the most is when you compete on big stages. So let's say you're in the finals at No-Gi Worlds, or you're at a big event, you're going to do a super fight for who's number one or something. You have to be able to handle the performance in front of a large amount of people and be focused on your task and be present in the moment. And I think that helps in the career when you go to doing, let's say, presentations for large groups of people. It's something where like you're familiar being seen, you're familiar talking, you're familiar being present. So I think that's kind of the overlap that I see in those two things.
Yeah.
And also, I guess another thing too, just more generally, right? It's like in jiu-jitsu, everybody has setbacks. Everybody has you have some days where you're the hammer, some days when you're more the nail. Some days you get an injury and you have that injury last for a month and you have to figure out how to work around it. You kind of get used to figuring out how to get better at something and how to perform through different levels of adversity.
Yeah.
I think that's just a general principle that people find translates to their daily life.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. We had a guy on, a friend of mine who he does a lot of work with like unsolved missing people cases, right? He's got a podcast and does some other work with some foundations that deal with missing children and whatnot. And I asked him the same question. And he was saying like the amount of stress, or first of all, like the amount of bullshit that they deal with from like the online community, right? First of all, and then like the amount of stress of just like talking to parents who have lost someone or, you know, those types of situations, and how I asked him like, well, just to help that. The same thing you said, right? Or just the idea of like being under constant pressure or constant stress, like, and being like, all right, I can be okay here, right? Like I can survive in this position where this guy's trying to choke me. And I can just use that like mental state of mind to whatever else I'm doing that's stressful in my life, right? I would try to tell people about that story. Like if they're debating about trying jujitsu, I'm like, just think about that. Like the mental strength alone, forget anything else. Like you'll just be comfortable in a shitty situation, right? That you didn't think you'd be possible to be comfortable in otherwise. So
yeah, you're comfortable managing your emotions and your anxiety levels.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. What's next for you on the tournament big show stage?
Yeah, so I'm looking to compete probably sometime in July. I haven't announced anything officially, but I'm looking at a couple different super fight promotions. But the goal is to have either a big tournament or a super fight in July, and then I want to make my MMA debut in either August or September. So if I do it in September, I like to compete in jiu-jitsu July, August, then fight in September. If I can fight in August, then I'll just compete jiu-jitsu July, fight in August.
Yeah.
But right now that's my primary focus. So I want to fight at middleweight, 185.
I was going to ask you that.
Yeah. So right now I'm losing weight. I've lost about 15 pounds so far. So I'm on my way, like down, and I'm feeling good actually. It's I've noticed I've gotten a lot more mobility and cardio just losing 15 pounds. It's actually been pretty massive. So I'm excited to compete in jiu-jitsu again with a little bit of a lighter frame.
And how tall are you? 6'4"?
6'4", yeah.
So 6'4", 185. That's a nice frame for MMA. Lean. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll probably be on the taller, lankier side of that.
Yeah. That's cool. That's great. That's a good target. We were just talking to a coach from another local gym about how, you know, when you can circle the date on your calendar, you know, as something that you can use as motivation to training, right? And how I was thinking about it myself, like, oh yeah, if I had a competition coming up, I can circle that date. Like it's always nice to know that you have that goal that you're pushing to, right? Versus just, I don't know, training for training. So.
Yeah, especially as a competitor too, because you kind of have limited years in the prime of your life. So if you want to use that, you got to be pretty busy. You either have to be like recovering from an injury, which happens to everybody, or you have to be busy competing as much as possible.
Yeah.
So in my head, it's like if you want to be a competitor every month or two, you should be finding something big to compete in.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, competing is a skill on its own outside of your skills within jiu-jitsu or MMA or whatever it is. If you're not competing frequently, you're not honing that skill. I think people underestimate that aspect of competing sometimes.
Yeah, the skill, and also just getting people aware of who you are and like your capabilities in martial arts. So you guys kind of talked about this earlier, where you listened to, I think you said a show I was on, and I said I just started training or competing more in the past year. And what I felt like is I don't think I got like dramatically better in the past year. I think the difference was I just started competing more, and people started to see me as I would medal at bigger tournaments. And so my visibility went up the more I competed. But I think there's plenty of people who are out there who are good or have the capability to be very good. They just don't necessarily put it out there. Maybe it's like self-doubt. Maybe they don't have time to dedicate to it. Maybe, you know, whatever the reason could be. But, you know, for everybody out there listening, if you guys want to be good at this, you got to put yourself out there and compete. That's the best thing you can do. Just go out there and compete as much as possible. And if you're good, people will notice. If not, then you'll learn things that you can take back to the gym and get better at.
Yeah, that's a great message.
Yep. Joe, when people ask you what you do, usually we ask people a couple questions every podcast, right? And one of them is like when people ask you, you know, when you're at a barbecue or whatever, and people ask you what you do. I imagine either answer that you give, whether your professional career or your jiu-jitsu career, what do you tell them? Like, what do you tell them when they ask you, like, what the hell is jiu-jitsu? What is this thing you do?
Say it's like karate, dude. We do flip kicks. We break boards. We karate chop bricks. Yeah.
Smash it with our heads. So you give them the complete bullshit answer.
Yeah. We wear the headband.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
We always joke that we like when people ask us, I just kind of like shirk away because it's like, how do you explain jiu-jitsu, right? You say it's grappling, people don't know what that is, right? You see it's wrestling, and they're like, oh, you're wearing a singlet. Like they don't really know, like, you know, what that is. So, and then the next question usually is like, oh, does that mean you can kick my ass, right? And then you wonder what you're gonna do with that.
Yeah.
They probably assume you can anyway, though, being a big guy.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Is that hard?
Like there's only one way to find out. Take off your shirt at the family reunion.
Right.
Oil up the belly. Let's go.
Strap on your bandana. Right. Oh shit, he's mad now. I don't know. Obviously, I don't know what your home gym is like people-wise, but is it hard for you as a taller, bigger guy to get good training rounds in with guys your size?
No, I don't think so. So we have naturally we have some masters level competitors at our gym who are significantly bigger than myself. So I'm about 6'4", 215, 210, and we got some guys who are anywhere from 6'2" to 6'7", 220 to 260, 270.
Ooh, some big.
So there's plenty of guys, to go get some good training with, and they're quite good, really good. We got a good group of people out here, but honestly, I kind of prefer to work more with the medium-sized people. I like people who are like maybe 180 to 220. So like around my size or just smaller, because I find they're a little bit better and a little bit faster. And the strength thing has never really been like a major concern. It's always been about getting technically better. Yeah. So the size thing, I think like once you've rolled enough big guys, you're kind of like, okay, I understand. I just have to be careful with like framing, not letting them put their weight on you, like control their grips that they can make on you. You kind of learn a couple rules of thumb to dealing with bigger guys. And then after that, it's like, okay, every time I roll with a big guy for a long time, my risk of injury goes up. so like I need to manage like getting used to bigger people and then not getting like hurt from constantly having heavy people on you.
Yeah. So funny you say that about frames and big guys. We literally just had this conversation yesterday during class about framing off a large guy. We're like, just literally practicing that exact thing.
Yeah, I had a blue belt student ask. He was questioning if the frames I was showing him would work on a bigger guy or not. So we tested
that's
it.
That's why we have frames.
Right. Yeah, we did test it. That's right. Joe, how would you describe your How would you describe your jiu-jitsu style? Do you have a jiu-jitsu style? Like, do you have like a game plan when you go into matches?
Yeah, I just look for the submission. Like everything I do is with that in mind. If I don't submit somebody in my matches, then I don't really feel like I won. Like no matter what, even if the score is 20-0, I didn't submit them. So I'm definitely someone who always goes after the submission. When you're in tournaments like ADCC and IBJJF tournaments where you need to play points, it's definitely something you have to be aware of, and you kind of modify the positions you let yourself get into to not get scored on and lose over points.
Yeah.
But in my head, always looking for any chance I can to go for the finish. That's the number one thing, always, in my opinion. One of the first movies I saw when I got into jiu-jitsu was Hickson Gracie's Choke. And I remember seeing his samurai warrior mentality,
Mm-hmm.
where he's in the stream in Japan. It's like glacial runoff. It's freezing.
Right.
He's like breathing. You know, he's telling the camera like, you know, I'm ready for death every time I get in there. And I was just like, that's awesome, man. I love that samurai spirit. So for me, I try to be smart and strategic, but if I don't get the sub, then it doesn't feel like it's worth it.
Yeah.
That doesn't feel like it's a real victory.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think that's how I describe my style, is submission oriented.
I think that plays right into, like you were talking about a few minutes ago, getting out there and getting more noticed. If you're one of those guys that gets known for always getting the subs, or at least always trying to, you're going to get a lot more attention than the guys that play it a little too conservative and aren't getting the submissions.
Yeah, you know, and that's kind of like, I think it comes down to the part of jiu-jitsu being a martial art. Like people, I think they tend to focus on the word martial, like the fighting aspect of it, but it's also an art. And in my opinion, the style that you choose, or the style that you like display when you compete, it does represent who you are, like artistically. And I think you'll see people who are very submission based in their jiu-jitsu. So a perfect example of that could be the Andrew Tackett's of the world. It could be, you know, the Craig Jones, whoever you want. I think they choose to do kind of more exciting submission-based styles because that's like what inspires them and makes them excited to compete. Then you see some other people who they maybe have a bit more of a conservative personality, and then maybe a little bit less like flair, and they're content to just be conservative and win by points, and that kind of represents their personality and their style. And you know, there's nothing wrong with that, but for me, I'm definitely someone who I want to do something where I can look back at it and go like, wow, that was cool, that was exciting to myself, and I think a lot of fans, they connect with that too.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, from a spectator perspective, people are entertained when they see finishes and they see definitive end to matches.
Yeah,
For sure, especially if we want to have jiu-jitsu spread to more of the masses. I mean, it takes the real jiu-jitsu nerds to watch and appreciate the battle in the trenches, the guard passing and the guard retention, and you know the small aspects of the game. The regular people want to see the submissions. If they want to see anything at all, it's going to be the submissions that
Right.
attract their attention.
yeah, yeah. So they
Yeah,
go,
highlights.
ooh, yeah,
Yeah, you know, that's one of the reasons why I love like competitors like the Rotullo brothers. I don't know if you guys caught their ONE FC matches,
Yep.
but they were so exciting, man. Like Kay did that thing where he like did the karate kick off the wall
Yeah.
to like that body lock flying back take, and you're just like, man, that's exciting. That makes me pumped.
yeah,
Especially getting into MMA, I'm like, that opens up some cool possibilities to start playing around with some shit like that.
yeah. That's
So,
awesome.
Yeah, their matches were
That's
wild.
cool.
They went after Gary and Aoki with like zero respect for anything that
Yeah.
was going to happen to them.
Yeah, yeah,
Just went at them like they were going against
Yeah.
some random Joes.
yeah. That's pretty awesome. I guess if you're gonna do it, you might as well do it that way, right? Like, what do you have to lose, really, when it comes down to it?
yeah, I mean, look at them too, man. It works. They've been doing that for a long time
Yeah.
too, since they were kids.
They do it to each other.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you heard some stories. Like I remember seeing there's like some YouTube flow grappling video where they're talking about when they get in fights over, I don't know, dirty dishes at their house, they'll go to the beach and just like bare knuckle fist fight for like 20 minutes.
Yeah. I guess that's.
I'm like, yeah, it's gonna be exciting to see them start to fight in MMA. I saw Ty Ruotolo was calling out Gary Tonin. Did you guys catch that?
no.
No.
That's awesome.
Yeah, you said he went with the rematch, but in MMA.
Nice.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And
That's
I
awesome.
was like, he's probably gonna do really well, man. Him and
Probably.
his brother. He's like a replica of himself to fight with every day.
Yeah, exactly. What do you think? Do you think that we get the Andre Galvao and Gordon Ryan match at ADCC? Do you think it happens?
I think it definitely happens. It's got to happen. I think Andre shows up every time for that. I don't see him not fighting him. And I think at this point they both have agreed to do it. So I think it absolutely happens. What happens when that match goes on is going to be very interesting. Because, ADCC Andre is like a different Andre. Like,
yeah.
You guys saw him last time when he showed up against Felipe Pena looking like a
monster.
Ninja Turtle.
Yeah.
Yeah, no neck.
Yeah.
It's gonna be interesting to see for sure.
Yeah, we're headed out there for
be there.
those matches. So we've been asking folks whether they think that match will actually happen. I mean, obviously there's, every match there is phenomenal with, tons of players, but curious to see whether that one's actually going to happen or not.
I think my bigger question for that one would be, how long does it last, and is it a submission?
Well, you were saying you thought it may just be a slog, right? Is that what
Could
you're
be.
saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's going to depend on how much Gordon can push it into a more submission-based scenario. I mean, Andre's really good at the ADCC game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it should be interesting.
Yeah, and it's 40 minutes for that, right? 20 minutes no points, 20 minutes points.
Yep.
That's a long time. That's a long time for the cardio to kick in. And Andre, even if he bulks up, he's still probably going to be significantly smaller than Gordon. Gordon's looking pretty big these days, so I think there's going to be quite a noticeable weight disparage there.
Yeah, it should be interesting.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah. Joe, one last question for you, and we typically ask this of folks, and sometimes it's hypothetical, sometimes it's real. So for your case, I'm sure it's real. What walkout songs or song do you like to use for your matches?
The one that I used for the longest time was Kanye West Power. I like that song.
Mm-hmm.
But at Who's Number One, I kind of changed it up. So I'm a big James Brown fan, and he has that song, The Boss.
Yeah. Yep.
And I love it, man. It gets me going. It gets me pumped up. So The Boss is my new walkout song.
We like it. So we've been doing a running Spotify playlist of all the songs from everybody we've asked for. So we've got, we just had one of AC/DC. We've got some White Stripes. We've got somebody
Whitney
Houston, someone picked recently. So, it's not always as fitting, like when we're actually rolling. We're actually training to play some of these songs. But we'll have I'll post something soon so everybody can see the full.
That's
playlist
awesome.
there. So
Yeah,
we'll definitely add
please
yours
do.
to it. Yeah, that's awesome. Any other questions?
I don't think so.
All right.
Where can the people find you, Joe?
Yeah, where can everybody find you, Joe?
Yeah, guys. So I'm right now. I'm on Instagram at Dierkhising_BJJ, and I'm going to be competing soon, either the end of this month or next month in Jiu Jitsu, and then I look to debut in MMA, as I said, in August or September. So I'd love it for you guys to tune in and check that out. I promise that I'm going to take the same submission-based style I have in Jiu Jitsu, and I'm going to apply that to MMA, and I'm going to make matches definitely entertaining for the fans. So I'd love for you guys to follow along and at least watch the matches. And yeah, that's it for me. Probably do No-Gi Worlds at the end of the year.
Awesome.
And it'll be exciting to watch the ADCC.
Yeah, it should be a good time. Joe, thank you so much, man. We appreciate you taking the time out of your day to chat with us, and we will definitely be following along. We appreciate it.
Awesome. Great. Thanks, you guys.
Thanks, man.
It's
Take
great
care.
to meet you.